So let's go to the next insight. What needs to happen now in an age when we have less and less time? And have you noticed? We call it the technological paradox, and that is the more technology we have to save us time, the less time we have. Because have you noticed the more technology you have, the faster people's expectations are of your response time? So I'm going to give you a very neat tool now to generate instant rapport. And as I take you through these 7 steps, I'll share with you of what I've done just this afternoon to walk this talk. Number 1 step, if you want to build rapport with others, is you better be on. How would you have felt about me today if I spoke to you like this? I want to thank you all for coming. It's a rush. You know what? It's like, I don't think I've ever been this pumped. Okay? Like, I don't know that you'd still be sitting here. In fact, some of you would be demanding a refund. So turn yourself on. We've already discussed that in previous slides. Number 2, go for the magic in others. Whatever you look for, that's what you will find. I tell you why I love what I'm doing is that for me, talking is an occupational hazard. Wherever I am, I'm going to start talking to someone. People sense when you're looking for what's best in them. So go for the magic in others. And by the way, suffer fools gladly. Love the idiots in your life. Let me tell you why. Because in somebody else's life, you're the idiot. Right? And by the way, have you ever been absolutely convinced that you were right, only to discover that you were so wrong? Right. So go for the magic in the other person. Number 3, know what the other person wants, but also what the other person needs. So this afternoon, you wanted some excitement, you wanted some inspiration, you wanted some tools, but what you needed was to be reintroduced to yourself. This is an emotional spa. Yeah, you're going to leave with some tools and some techniques and some distinctions, but more importantly, when you leave here, you've got more mojo, right? When you get in front of people tomorrow and the day after and the week after and the month over and the month after, you'll bring more energy. How many of you have heard of a company called Unilock? Does that name ring a bell? Good. It's a great Canadian company. It's a paving stone manufacturer. They're very active in Michigan and throughout the whole Northeast. And I did a program for their sales folk about 4 months ago. And one of their stars out of Chicago is a guy called Kyle Trappier. And he sent me an email 6 weeks after a program I did with his team. And he said, Mike, I honestly cannot tell you a single word you said. But what I want to tell you is that the past 5 weeks have been the best 5 weeks of my entire career. Because I'm bringing more energy than I've ever brought before to every single client. He said, Mike, the one thing you taught me is that it's okay to be fully you when you're in front of other people. Be fully you. Be you, I say, because others are already taken. Okay? So know what they want and need. And by the way, the great salespeople in this room, the great ones, when the client tells you what he wants or what she wants, you might say, I hear that that's what you want. Here's what I think you may need. That takes guts. But know what the client wants and needs. Number 4, listen intimately. We're going to talk about listening in a moment. The great salespeople listen 80% of the time. They talk 20% of the time, which is what I do, except when I'm being paid by the word. Number 5, use the other person's words. So I have a confession to make. Up in Canada, I work with 2 large automotive companies, neither of which is the big 3. Work with some, folks from Nissan, some folks from BMW. I'm waiting for an invitation from the big 3. But the reason why my friends at Nissan and BMW love me is that I talk their language. What I say to them is, I say to them, I want you to see me as your people's ignition point. I want you to see me as someone who will help your people fire on all cylinders. Because I'm someone who will help your people put pedal to the metal and be at their best when the rubber meets the road. So they can cross the finish line and take the checkered flag. These guys are going, we like this guy. Consciously use words other people use. Why is it so important to use other people's words? Share with me. Because then you relate to them. Have you ever said to someone, I like you because we have big differences? No. So if you were selling to me, let me make sure that everyone's got what I'm talking about here. If you were selling to Mike, what words would you use based on what I've said to you since 1:45 today? What words would you use to connect with me? Focus, sweet spot, enthusiasm. Energy. Bring it on. Energy, intensity. Being. Lipkinism. You guys get this. Practice this. Practice this, because what it's saying to the other person is you're not just listening to what they say, you are listening to who they are. And let me tell you the fundamental craving we all have. We want to be recognized for who we are. We live in fear that we will live our 80 years and no one will even have noticed that we were here. We want to be significant. We want to feel like we're making a difference. When you share with people their words, they know even at a subconscious level that you're paying attention and that they are significant. Number 6, reflect their style, tempo, and stance. So if you're dealing with a guy like me, you might want to crank up your energy a little bit. You know, not that it matters, but you know what? You know, I'm a guy who kind of, you know, lives life large, baby. Play big or go home. Right? And tempo is the speed at which I talk. So if you're talking to a guy like me, you might want to just speed up your diction just a little bit. If I am the customer and you're trying to sell something to me and demonstrate the fact that you and I are similar. By the way, once you've achieved my trust, then all of this is automatic. Have you noticed that when you're dealing with people who've proven that they're there for you, who've proven that they get your results, who've proven that they're consistently outstanding, none of this matters because it's there already. But when you are meeting someone for the first time, and so much depends on that first encounter. Because do you want to know the difference between God and humans? God does not presume to judge us until the end of our days. Human beings judge each other on impact. And you know the cliche, you never get a second chance to make that first impression. Now, my favorite step of all is step number 7. Romance and re-romance. Both the people in your business life and the people in your personal life. I have an Italian-Canadian friend who gave me a fabulous piece of advice. He said, Mike, live every day as though it were your last, and every night as though it were your first. Now, why do you think relationships in business come apart? Why do relationships fray and then snap? What's the number one reason? You take them for granted. What else? Broken promises. Big, big thing. Communication. The reason why they come apart is we stop treating them like they're brand new. Have you ever noticed the first time you meet someone, in the early stages of that relationship, when you are building it and you know you're building it, you throw yourself into it wholeheartedly. And then after a while, once you think you have the other person's business, you then take it for granted and you take your new business attentions elsewhere, and then you get a shock when you hear that the business is gone. If you do one thing as a result of my program with you today, go out and treat every client as though you've just won that client over and over and over again. So I invite you to try this on. Right? Turn yourself on, go for the magic in others, know what they want and need, listen intimately, use their words, reflect their style, tempo, and stance. Stance, by the way, is just the way they hold themselves. All right? So if you're dealing with a guy like me, you know, just hold yourself in a confident fashion. And then finally, romance and re-romance. Let's look at the second last insight. Remember what I said at the start of this day, that how you listen to others becomes their opinion of themselves. How you've listened to me has motivated me as much as my words may have motivated you. So I'm going to ask you to do something. If all you do as a result of our session together is apply this principle, you will get a huge return on your investment this afternoon. Listen to everyone around you like their words could transform your life in the next minute. Listen to everyone around you as though their words could transform your life in the next minute. Listen with your whole body. So if you watch me as I've been listening to you today, I lean into the conversation. Because we don't just listen with our ears. How many of you have ever been in a meeting and you got goosebumps? Because you felt something before you knew why. Your skin was absorbing the truth. How many of you have ever felt like a tightness in your gut before you knew why? Your instincts were communicating before your brain had a chance to figure out what your instincts were communicating. So if you immerse yourself in a conversation, you tend to hear more. Watch people in meetings. Watch the great listeners. They lean into the meeting. They're fully there, physically, mentally, emotionally. Watch people who've disengaged. Physically, they've disengaged. Listen to everybody the way you're listening right now. Listen with your third ear. Listen for what's not being said. Listen for the context in which something is being said. And then call the person on it. Like the other day, I'm in a meeting, and I ask someone whether they like what I'm saying. And they go, yeah. Yeah. And I go, yeah. I said, am I hearing a slight doubt there or a slight skepticism? And I invited the person then to share more with me. So listen with your third ear, especially when you're with your spouse. And then finally, restate what you've heard and ask for validation. So, let's now look at the final insight. And I want to share with you 15 minutes that changed my life. In the South African winter of 2003, I had an invitation to do a workshop with the Nelson Mandela Foundation. I still do some work in South Africa, and Nelson Mandela's chief of staff is a woman called Heather Hendrigues. She manages a team of about 30 people, and they were overwhelmed. So she calls me and she said, Mike, would you be willing to come to South Africa to do a program for our folks? I said, definitely. And then she said, what would your fee be? And I said, if you can arrange for me to meet Nelson Mandela, then that will be payment enough. Now let me ask you a question. If you had 15 minutes, which is all I had with Nelson Mandela, what question would you want to ask him? If you had 15 minutes with Nelson Mandela, what question would you want to ask him? How did you endure that time?
Yeah. How did you keep your spirits up?
How did you keep your spirits up? And that's what I asked him. How he could forgive for those 27 years. Well, I asked him what it was like suffering for all those years. And he said to me, I lived my life in such a way that when I was released, I would transform my nation into the kind of nation I dreamt of it becoming. That's what he said to me. He lived his life in such a way that when he was released, he would transform his nation into the kind of nation he dreamt of it becoming. That's how he lived his life every day. Are you living your life in such a way that you'll transform, maybe not your country, maybe not even your community, maybe not even your company, maybe just your cubicle? But here's a guy who for 27 years lived his life in such a way that when he was released, he would transform his nation into the kind of nation he dreamed of it becoming. Compared to Nelson Mandela, how's your life looking? And what drives you? Because I think there are three ingredients that comprise passion. Number one is resilience. I mean, imagine what it would take to get up every single day for 27 years and live your life that way. Imagine the guts, imagine the courage, imagine the stamina. And that's why there's no substitute for mental, emotional, and physical durability. Express your gratitude. Do you know that our research says 2/3 of workers in North America never get positive recognition? They just get dumped on when things go wrong. Go out of your way to express gratitude to others. And finally, sustain your fascination. You know, every day is a massive gift. And it's taken from many of us. You know, for me, one of the great tragedies of the past decade has been the story of Christopher and Dana Reeves. Imagine, here you are, literally Superman. And the very next day, you're a paraplegic, paralyzed literally from the neck down, where you need a machine to help you breathe. And somehow you hang in there for 10 years and you become one of the great activists. And then you have a wife who at the age of 44, never having smoked a day in her life, dies of lung cancer. So don't talk to me about fair. Talk to me about squeezing the magic out of every moment that you've been gifted. So I'm going to ask you to sustain your fascination with everything around you, because the opposite of fascination is being cynical. And there are too many cynical people on the planet. There are too many cynical people on this continent. A cynical person, by the way, is someone who says, nothing I do makes a difference, and nothing you do will make a difference either. A fascinated person is someone who's enthralled by everything around them. And here's what I want to share with you. Wherever you are right now is where you are destined to be right now, because that's where you are right now. Wherever you are right now is where you are destined to be right now, because that's where you are right now. So don't wait for the right time. Make the time right now. That's what great salespeople do. They create such a great buzz around them. They create such a great experience around them that people are magnetized to them because of how they feel as a result of being with them. So here's my final little Lipkinism for you to take away. You will either become a model of what's possible, or you will become a warning of what could happen. Become a model of what's possible. Thank you very much.